Secretary Byrd, I'd like to return to your testimony and hear more about the specific safeguards that Florida has in place to prevent non-citizens from voting and what the federal government needs to do to help equip state and local election officials to conduct lawful, accurate elections. In 2020, Florida's Constitution was amended to specifically ensure that only U.S. citizens can vote in Florida, correct?
That is correct.
And that passed with over almost 80% of the vote in Florida, isn't that right?
That is actually right.
Now, you testified earlier about something called the SAVE database that is in the possession of the Department of Homeland Security. But you mentioned that it was both overly expensive and inefficient, in essence, for state and local election officials to use. Would you tell us a little bit more about that database and some of the things that make it less than optimal for your use as an elections official?
Thank you. Yes, so the SAVE database is both inefficient due to time and accuracy. It costs states for every transaction, and for some voters, it's multiple transactions, so it's a financial burden on the states to gain information that only the federal government has, that we are compelled as states to comply with under federal law. So by the time an election can come, and before we've had the opportunity to gain all of the information, a non-citizen who made it onto the rolls could gain access to the vote before we have time to remove them.
Would it be helpful if there was not a fee associated with accessing that database?
Absolutely.
And in your opinion, should that database and could that database be more complete and more accurate?
Yes, it should be and more accessible to every state and to local voting administrators.
You also touched on information about when a person is naturalized and then should be an eligible voter. Is that information that is promptly and reliably provided to you as an election official from the federal government?
It is not, and that is one of the things that we are requesting that the Congress consider, is making that information available on a regular basis to states, everyone who is naturalized, so we can run that database of new citizens against our existing voter registration roll.
Mr. Adams testified earlier about information that exists in the federal courts when individuals report for jury duty. Is there information there as well that would be useful to you if it were in fact provided to state and local election officials?
Yes, any information that is in the possession of any branch of the federal government regarding citizenship status would be helpful to the states.
Are there other provisions of the NVRA that, in your view, would be helpful if amended?
Most significantly, it is the issue of who has become a naturalized citizen, but also, as you know, as my predecessor, as Secretary of State of Florida, in a presidential election year, which we are in, there are 3 periods. We have a presidential preference primary, the primary in August, and then the election in November. There's a provision in the NVRA that prohibits states from doing certain list maintenance 90 days before each of those elections. That's 270 days out of this presidential election year in which states are prohibited from engaging in certain voter list maintenance activity, and we think that should be stopped.
Thank you, Secretary Byrd. And Mr. Adams, I wanted to return to you. You featured very prominently in some comments just a moment ago. I wanted to give you an opportunity to share your perspective and respond.
Thank you, Representative Lee. First of all, I see Representative Torres as hit and run. This is an endemic of cancel culture where anyone who talks about these issues is attacked. Her recitation of the record was grotesquely inadequate, and in fact, what we published were public records from the Commonwealth of Virginia about non-citizens who were removed from the rolls or purported non-citizens. I have here from Virginia's Department of Elections commentary about our work. It said, "It is worth noting there were some issues that we had with delivery of the DMV non-citizen file. They've since corrected these issues." In other words, we found a problem in Virginia list maintenance involving the improper cancellation of Americans. Representative Torres, were she still here, should be glad that public records have been corrected as a result of these cases that we discovered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
The gentleman yields.